It's the biggest threat we face, but it's a much more sophisticated threat, and it's primarily economic. And the main danger that we have is that, look, if Trump sells out the Ukraine, as he still might, it's just going to be a green light for the Chinese to invade Taiwan. We then won't be able to do anything because at the current rate of play, we're going to become so economically dependent on China that effectively, if we put sanctions on them, we'll collapse our economy. In fact, China's invasion of Taiwan, because of the chips that come out of Taiwan that supply the global economy, it might well crash the global economy anyway.
Well, Donald Trump finished his speech to Congress a short while ago. It was an hour and 43 minutes long. The president talked about Russian and Ukrainian soldiers dying on both sides and told Congress about the message he got from President Zelensky.
Earlier today, I received an important letter from President Zelensky of Ukraine. The letter reads, Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer. Nobody wants peace more than the Ukrainians, he said. My team and I stand ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. We do really value how much America has done to help Ukraine maintain its sovereignty and independence. Regarding the agreement on minerals and security, Ukraine is ready to sign it at any time that is convenient for you.
Yeah, reading out Zelensky because he feels he's won over Zelensky. An offer was extended to Greenland to become part of the United States, but like a good Don, it was also an offer that couldn't be refused.
We strongly support your right to determine your own future, and if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America. We need Greenland for national security and even international security, and we're working with everybody involved to try and get it. But we need it really for international world security, and I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it.
Ha, 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 ha. Nervous laugh, nervous laugh.
I mean, Donald Trump's speech came overnight, but before that, yesterday, the Vice President, Vance, caused outrage among British Armed Forces veterans here when he said this.
The president knows that, look, if you want real security guarantees, if you want to actually ensure that Vladimir Putin does not invade Ukraine again, the very best security guarantee is to give Americans economic upside in the future of Ukraine. That is a way better security guarantee than 20,000 troops from some random country that hasn't fought a war in 30 or 40 years.
Vance later said he didn't mean British or French troops when he talked about random countries, even though only the UK and France have so far publicly said they want their forces involved. So should we accept his clarification at face value? Bob Seeley, the former MP for the Isle of Wight, who served in the armed forces in Iraq, Afghanistan and Libya, joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning to your listeners.
What is your reaction to what you heard from Vance, Bob Seeley?
Look, I think it was probably tactless and a bit stupid, and he's learning that actually his words have effect and his words get listened to around the world, and if he puts his foot in it, people react. He's since said, yeah, I didn't mean Britain and France. I hope he's right. As you say yourself, nobody else but the British and the French have talked about being part of a peacekeeping force. So I just think it was a crass way of saying something, and I think he's probably trying to row back from it now. It's not great.
Is there a concern here for America that there is the potential for them to lose influence or respect on the world stage? I mean, what Vance said yesterday may well be overtaken in the headlines by what Trump said overnight, but it certainly caused a lasting impression on politicians here.
Yeah, look, I'm pretty depressed about listening to Trump and what Trump and Vance had to say. And I was a big fan of what Vance was having to say a few weeks ago when he was talking about woke and mass immigration. They have got a point, and we need to get our house sorted, both in the UK and Europe, and we haven't done so yet. Likewise, neither has the United States. But I do think that they are going to lose friends and not influence people very quickly the way they're going. And I thought the bullying of Zelensky last week was absurd. And when Zelensky now is saying we're ready for peace, they were ready for peace last week. I think there was an ugly setup where Trump and Vance tore into him, presumably to please either a domestic audience or to impress the Russians for some unknown reason. But I thought, I just think they're going to get a lot of people's backs up. I think the Canadians are very unhappy with what's happening. The Mexicans are unhappy with what's happening. And let's remember, at the same time of all these so-called peace deals, which I hope clearly work out, He's slapping tariffs on countries right, left, and centre. So I think it's a very unstable time. Let's see what happens.
Stepping back a bit, I mean, you have been an MP, you've been around the parties, you understand how Parliament works. People are often struck by the fact that some MPs are really hesitant when it comes to commenting. Kemi Badenoch has warned her party, the Conservatives, not to tweet, for example. Is that a good idea?
It depends what's it on. I totally understand what Kemi's trying to do because it's a very sensitive time. And you don't want people gobbing off because they're echoing something they read in the media. However, look, I mean, I think if you have got expertise, then I think you've got a right to comment. There is a balance with all these things. And I think because of the sensitivity of putting forces potentially between Russian and Ukrainian troops, personally, I still don't see how it's going to work. I don't see how anyone's going to reach guarantees to keep those forces safe. And I think if you have forces there, the amount of electronic warfare cover they're going to have, the amount of anti-drone protection they're going to have, all the things that could go wrong. I find it very difficult, but I also think there's an argument for being sensitive about what people post. There's a balance with all these things.
Finally, briefly, Bob, while we've got you, Iran has been designated as a threat. China hasn't been by the government. We've been picking up in the last couple of days more talk about China in a positive way. Maybe that countries are changing their mind on China given what's happening with Russia. How do you feel about that?
I personally think that it is a threat, and it's the biggest threat we face, but it's a much more sophisticated threat, and it's primarily economic. The main danger that we have is that, look, if Trump sells out Ukraine, as he still might, it's just going to be a green light for the Chinese to invade Taiwan. We then won't be able to do anything because at the current rate of play, we're going to become so economically dependent on China that effectively, if we put sanctions on them, we'll collapse our economy. In fact, China's invasion of Taiwan, because of the chips that come out of Taiwan that supply the global economy, it might well crash the global economy anyway. The absolute primary danger with China is the lack of diversity over our supply chains, which is being made worse by the idiocy of the current net zero policy, where China is building coal-fired power stations to sell slave labor, solar panels, and other items to us in order for us to have the most expensive energy prices in the world and export our manufacturing to China. So basically, our manufacturing industry, the jobs and the wealth it creates, goes to somewhere that is producing large amounts of greenhouse gas to sell that back to us and sell us the net zero equipment. So the whole economic strategy is frankly absurd and is incredibly counterproductive, is dangerous, and actually is an absolute threat to the long-term security of this country, but not purely in a military way. And the problem is the people who are running our country, Labour, don't seem to understand some of the implications of what they are doing.
Bob Seeley, former MP for the Isle of Wight, who served in the armed forces. Really appreciate your time this morning on the programme. Thank you very much. And Bob's new book, The Return of Total War, is out shortly. It's on the Russian conflict in Ukraine and against the West.